welcome to Tripod, our travel retail themed podcast series in collaboration with the SIVA Group. I'm Martin Moodie.
I'm Roger Jackson.
Nice to be back again, Roger, and once more we have a very special guest that we're going to introduce in a moment. And as always, you've picked out an issue of the week to discuss. So what's that going to be?
I think, Martin, for this week, the topic I'd like to discuss is the travel corridor that's been opened up between Germany, Brunei and Singapore. And I think whilst it's limited, obviously limited to those three countries, I think it's really important. You know, Singapore has been one of those countries, along with where you are today, Hong Kong, Germany, New Zealand. It's been one of those countries that has obviously been very, very difficult to get in and out of, with very stringent, legislation in place. And that's obviously seen very limited COVID cases in those countries. And in many aspects, you can say that strategies work for them. I think, especially given us sat in our industry, that isn't that helpful. And we all want, return to safe travel. So the fact that Singapore has now opened this travel corridor up without quarantine to Germany and Brunei, I'm hoping this is the first step to, countries doing this with a number of different countries they obviously trust, and they're sharing data, etc. Because I think whilst this includes 3 countries at the moment, suddenly that 3 can become 5, that 5 can become 10, and suddenly you can then connect a number of different countries around the world. So I think for us in travel retail, and generally as in terms of global travel, I think this is a real important first step into a return to safe travel. What do you think, Martin?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And there's been a discernible shift in the attitude of the Singaporean authorities to one of learning to live with COVID. They've been very public about it, their politicians, as opposed to, this zealous goal of 0 locally transmitted cases. I think the Delta variant, frankly, changed everything. We're probably going to see that change in my home country of New Zealand as well, but definitely a really good sign. And all of us, of course, want to see that great Singapore airport reopening and fully and trading again. So can't wait for that. All right, Roger, good. Well, it's time to meet a very special guest with a very interesting story. This episode's special guest is Luke Maga, Managing Director, Global Travel Retail at DISTELL Limited, South Africa's and indeed Africa's leading producer and marketer of wines, spirits, ciders, and other ready-to-drink beverages sold across the world throughout the global travel retail channel. Through Luke's leadership, it's famous internationally and certainly in travel retail for its great cream liqueur brand Amarula, but the portfolio has several other gems, including some great South African wines and an eclectic spirits portfolio, including Deanston single malt from the Scottish Highlands, a personal favourite, Bain single grain whisky from South Africa, and many others. Now, Luke's had over 16 years in the global TR business, having held senior roles with Bain Global Spirits and Wines, now of course Beam Suntory, from 2005 to 2012, and earlier on with Maxium, remember that name, for just over 4 years. And Luke has another claim to fame, and I believe it's a unique one in the travel retail industry. He's a former golf pro. At the age of 13, he was playing off a single figure handicap, and by 16, playing off scratch. Wow. A natural ability that led him to turning pro after leaving university. So I'm sure we'll learn more about that today, and also discover what drove the career choice between golf and the drinks and travel retail industry. Luke, thanks for being with us.
Thanks again, Martin and Roger. Great to be here.
Good. Well, Roger, I'm going to pass over to you to kick us off today for what promises to be a fascinating conversation.
Thanks, Martin, and hi, Luke.
Hey, Roger.
I think the place we've got to start, especially in travel retail, we've got plenty of people in travel retail who all think they should be golf professionals, but as we see at most of our golf events aren't. including myself. Where did the golf start? And, you know, to become a golf professional is unbelievable. So how did all of that start? And tell us that fascinating story.
Yeah, no. So, look, grew up in a small little town just outside of Newcastle, just north of Sydney, and there was just a 9-hole golf course just on our backyard. So each afternoon, we used to jump the fence, play a couple of holes with my father, you know, using a cut down iron, and kind of just got a passion for it. And it was just you know, something that, you know, sport that I just really enjoyed. One thing I enjoyed about it is that every time you actually hopped on a golf course, as we'd all know, it just changes. One day you can have absolutely a fantastic round. The next day it can all go in a different direction. So it was a challenging, I guess, aspect of the sport that really drove it, you know, me down this line. And I think also just my grandmother, you know, she always used to say to me, you know, if you go and play golf with members, you know, back in the late 80s and 90s, it teaches you discipline. And you know, especially at some of these golf clubs, they'll clip you over the ears if you look at them wrong in the wrong direction. So yeah, it was a great passion of mine, and one that now being up here in Scotland that I'm reigniting. And I'd have to say I'm probably more excited about picking a golf club up at the moment than what I was when I was about 6. So yeah.
And what do you play off now, Luke?
Look, I still play off about 2 at the moment. So getting back into it. It used to be a lot easier, but I think it must be just age. I can remember being a lot more flexible the last time I was really playing at a better level. So I have to work on that flexibility.
And you've got one of those interesting backgrounds, actually similar to me. I didn't start off in travel retail on the shop floor, but you started off in travel retail on the shop floor.
Yeah.
And I know quite a few people who did as well. It seems to be a bit similar with sort of grocery backgrounds. People start up on the shop floor, but you've got that grounding as being on the shop floor and obviously building your way up. What was that like all those years ago, working in travel retail on the shop floor?
Yeah, it was totally different to what it is now, and I love being on the floor even to this day. You know, if someone offers me an opportunity to go and spend an hour training a promoter on the floor, it's something I enjoy doing. You know, that hand selling. But it came actually. I was playing a pro-am with a guy down in Sydney, and he was managing a large liquor outlets, and I was after some part-time work. So I said, you know, it's golf was progressing quite nicely, but you know, I just wanted a little bit more cash in the back pocket, and said, look, you know, do you have any work? Just you know, happy to undo boxes. I'm happy to stack shelves. And he said, look, I'll put you in contact with an agency. They're after some staff in Sydney Airport. So I, you know, a week later, rock up to an interview. And got the job working on the floor there for Maxium. And, you know, at that time there, Sydney Airport, it was in 2001, you know, the arrival store. And that was kind of the first arrival stores within travel retail. So got out on the floor. It was at 5 a.m. starts. I'd be finished work in the airport there at 10 a.m. And it was perfect because then I'd just go to the golf course be there at 11, and I'd play golf until all hours of the evening and do the same thing the next day. So it was a perfect balance in both from a golf aspect and also from introduction into the liquor industry as well.
And you've obviously stayed pretty much in travel retail, looking at, you know, Big Story and obviously your current role as well. What's your view on travel retail, where we came from and where we are now? What's sort of your personal view on where we are and where we're heading?
Yeah, look, I think it's a huge transition. You know, going back to the days on the floor there at Sydney Airport, you had an assortment of malt whiskies, which were about 12 products. You know, you had 4 vodkas, 4 gins, a little bit of wine, and 4 cognac brands. The assortment has just increased significantly, and I think it's driven majority through obviously innovation, and that's what the channel is all about. And I think we cannot lose sight of how innovation plays that important role within travel retail. And we got to a good stage, I feel, pre-COVID, where, you know, there was lots of new gins coming up in the markets, whether it's vodkas, whether it's, you know, some really nice whiskies. And I hope that, you know, after COVID, we actually remember what travel retail is actually about, because we are seeing some of the assortments are reduced, and for obvious reasons. But we don't want to go back and take a backward step of 15 years or so and go back into a smaller assortment, because the consumers, if we look at their shopping patterns now online, they're expecting new, they're expecting more. But certainly the actual stores, when you walk through them, have certainly become a shopping destination. And I'm a sucker for a shop. I'll get to the airport 3 hours early, and I want to walk around an airport, and I'll always buy something that I probably don't need. But that is, I think, more due to the actual environment and the way that the environment's actually being created these days.
Yeah, no, for certain.
Yeah, just go back to that fork in the road, Luke, briefly, because most of our listeners won't know that you were actually out there on the circuit, on the pro circuit.
Yes.
Pretty attractive lifestyle, I suppose, on one hand. I know there's lots of pressures with it as well. You talked about the need to put cash in the bank. Was it as simple a decision as that, or you're tired of life on the road?
Yeah, look, there was a couple of defining moments. It came after probably one of my best years actually playing, and my passion was always about giving golf lessons. I loved giving golf lessons. I like helping people, you know, improve their golf. And I
remember that, Rog.
I need it. I don't.
And it was kind of that fork in the road, as you talk about, because I sat there one night, and I knew I was never going to be good enough to make it full time as a golf pro playing. You've got to draw that line in the sand. I had a look at a couple of my friends who had just kept on just trying and trying and trying, and the more they tried, the further away that goal became. So I kind of sat there and had a conversation with Roscoe at the time from Maxium and Joel Thong, and just said, guys, you know, is there anything that I can actually do to move into travel retail from a sales aspect? Still want to kind of continue my golf, but you know, it's more just I had to make a career change, and I was in my early 20s. Lifestyle had a lot to do with it as well. You know, life as a golf pro, if you're not making cuts on a weekly basis, baked beans on toast becomes a luxury. So I had to make a career change, and it was great that there was an opportunity to join the Maxium team at that stage.
And since then, you've worked for some great companies. You're working for a great company now. Very different companies, very different experiences, I expect. Just tell us briefly about that journey.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, started off there in Maxium, based in Sydney, looking after the Australia and Australian duty-free market as just their business development manager. So really hands-on job, working with promoters and starting to deal with the customers in an Australian aspect. And then throughout that career, had some opportunities to take on some new markets, such as New Zealand or and the Pacific Islands, which are quite sizable markets when you've got brands like Jim Beam down in Australia. And at that stage there, it was kind of that opportunity where it was just stretching me into the love of travel retail, and I certainly wanted more. And, you know, as you know, the portfolio for Maxium, we had some phenomenal products in there. You know, brands like Macallan was and Highland Park. And if I look at where they were on the shop floor and where they are now today, you know, they've done a phenomenal, success of the brand. So it was disappointing. It was a shame when obviously Maxium split down in that way, and Remy parted, and V&S Spirits parted. But it still actually had two really, really strong brand owners to continue my career on with travel retail. And it was at that point there, you know, if I digress, I was looking after New Zealand there for a while. And it was where I actually met my wife, actually in a meeting when she was working for DFS. And it was always something that Joel mentioned to me. He said, always get close to your customers, but I'm not sure he meant to get that close to the customer at that early stage. But yeah, so we then obviously I got moved into position there in Jim Beam, again managing just the Australian business and overseeing a little bit of the Asia Pacific market, and trying just to work out some strategic direction there, which was a lot of fun. You know, brands like Jim Beam are great down in Australia. You know, it is the largest selling spirit brand still down there. So it was good exposure into how big brands actually act. But it did get to a stage where I was probably getting a little bit, not bored in my role, but I just wanted that next challenge. So it was only one Christmas that my wife and I decided over the Christmas table that we're going to move to Hong Kong. So we decided to pack up our life in Sydney, which was a fantastic life. Arnica at that stage was only 2.5. And we relocated to Hong Kong and set up a design and construction company, still in travel retail, but building wall bays and HPP areas for a lot of the brands that are still in those airports. And it allowed me just to continue in travel retail, because I think once you do get in travel retail, the community around travel retail and the friendships that you actually make are invaluable. You know, so we actually set up quite a successful business there in Hong Kong. And as we were talking earlier, Martin, you know, Hong Kong is just such a dynamic city. You know, 18 hours a day you could work, but it doesn't seem like you're working 18 hours because there's this, the city never sleeps. So, and then, you know, getting on to where I am now is around Distill. And it was only by coincidence that I was approached by Marius Fischer in Distill at the time, and asked me to join him for a coffee. And so I joined him at a coffee. End up going to the wrong hotel to meet Marius, but you know, we had a chat, and Marius wanted someone to set up their Asia Pacific travel retail business, so based in Hong Kong. So I thought, look, I might be able to straddle both roles, both doing the design role and the still role, but because I did miss those conversations that you have with a buyer over the table. You know, it's those negotiations about one margin point or that extra $5,000 for a light box. They're the fun negotiations that I did miss. And managed to set up the Asia Pacific travel retail business for Distill Travel Retail. At that stage, we only had one relationship, and that was with DFS. So we managed to set up a full route to market portfolio, which was great. And Distill as a company, you know, the brands are so desirable when you actually get immersed in the brands. It's we've got so much potential behind those brands. And then there was some change in senior management when Marius moved into Taiwan. And then I had an opportunity to, it was whilst we were in South Africa, to take over as the MD of travel retail, and based in South Africa. And I can still remember the conversation that I had with the director down there. We were sitting in a game reserve up in Kapama, which is up north in just shy of the Kruger National Park. And the first thing he said, look, he said, you know, there's some restructuring. Would you guys ever think of moving to South Africa? And I was on speakerphone, and all my daughter was doing handstands in the background, going, yes, when can we move? And my wife's kind of looking, going, yep, let's do it. So that moved us to South Africa, which was 2.5 years of restructuring, new strategies in place. You know, we went from a very young travel retail business unit that was only really set up in 2012, 2013, but really structured around, you know, key travel trail airports and building brands, building Amarula in the right way, commercially viable, but also just telling our story. So 2.5 years down in Cape Town, which living on the wine farms in Stellenbosch is quite difficult on the weekends, because it is which wine farm shall we go to today? And then after that, I was traveling quite a bit in the last year of living in South Africa, and a lot up here into the UK and Europe, and sat down and had the hard conversation to say, look, you know, it's probably easier if I actually relocated to the UK, which then brought us up here into the UK for 2 years, which we absolutely loved. Still the same role, but then we built a little bit more of the team, a lot more drive behind our premium spirits range. And it was only last year that my daughter decided that she wanted to go to school in Scotland. So, and she'd never been there. So we flew up to Scotland, seen some schools, and she was heart set on a particular school up here. And that brought us to Edinburgh and to Stirling now, where we're sitting here on the hottest day apparently of the month, which is going to be 26 degrees up here in Stirling today. So there'll be a lot of Scots that are melting, I'm sure. So
you've gradually got colder as your career's gone. I think you can only go from Stirling. I think you've got to go to Iceland or the North Pole next. So I think that's the...
Exactly. And my wife's, she doesn't like the cold, Roger. And when I said, you know, we're moving to South Africa, she's like, fantastic. I can get back and, you know, have some beach life and enjoy kind of the 4 seasons. But when I said we're moving to Scotland, first thing she Googled is, well, the temperatures variance between London and Scotland is like 10 degrees in winter and 10 degrees in summer. I said, well, but, you know, lifestyle up here in Scotland, as you both know, it's just such a beautiful country. You know, I'm sitting here just in an old converted barn stable at the moment, looking out at fields of barley and cows. And it actually makes the job actually more, you appreciate the job a little bit more. And the people are much nicer up here, close to our whisky distilleries. So that's great.
Look, you've had a really varied career, a lot in, well, mostly in travel retail, as you said, and you're absolutely right. I think most people outside of travel retail don't understand the buzz, and you get hooked on it. I'm also very similar, you know, 13, 14 years in travel retail, and I thought I'd be there for a year. You've worked for some great companies. DISTELL, obviously, an amazing company. Throughout that career, is there anyone like a mentor or someone you've worked for or someone you've worked with that you would, you know, call out as having a big impact on you?
Yeah, look, I think in my Beam days, there was a guy down there, Nick Detmold, who was working for Jim Beam, and he was commercial director at the stage. And he was the first one that really kind of took me under his wing and tried to push me into outside my comfort level, and really had me understanding other aspects of the Beam business. So it was actually great to have that grounding at that point in time. And then, you know, you touch on people as you go through your career, and I believe that, you know, you can learn a little bit from everyone. You know, the role that I'm in today, you know, was really driven and through Marius Vercher, who's now actually up in MMI there. Marius was the one that really drove me to get the opportunity to kind of head up travel retail. And because within DISTELL, travel retail at that stage, no one really knew what the opportunity was. No one knew what the actual, the channel involved. All they saw was it's an expensive channel and we don't sell much at the moment, and especially for a large scale business like DISTELL. But it allowed me just to get my feet under the ground, and also have some other people just mentor me on the way, you know, which has actually been great. And as we progressing and driving the business heading forward at the moment, you know, there's some dynamic people in our industry at the moment, whether it's through marketing or supply chain or my current reporting line, that all are having that little bit of impact on what I'm doing at the moment. So, yeah.
Okay, just to close off this section, Luke, let's talk about CSR a bit. And within DISTELL, obviously I mentioned Amarula earlier on. I think one of the great CSR programs in our industry is the Amarula Trust. Just tell us briefly about that and why you feel so passionately about it.
Yeah, no, definitely, Martin. It was something that really I got my hands involved with when I moved to South Africa and saw the opportunity. You know, the Amarula Trust was set up in South Africa, but it wasn't really leveraged enough in the other aspects of the world. So the Amarula Trust is about basically giving back. We want to become a brand with a purpose. So the trust is all about empowering people, and that is going down to producers. Like the marula fruit as such that makes up our marula isn't cultivated. It's actually found on the plains of South Africa. So we have to engage local villages to go and collect the fruit for us to kind of bring back to our production sites to start that production. And even down to the tassel, which is actually around the bottle neck. That's actually a local business that's actually run by ladies down in the Western Cape. They actually hand make every single tassel that goes on a bottle of Amarula. Everything from the 1 litre down to the 50 cl bottles. So it's a really good story, and it's about, you know, really giving back. The trust was founded in 2008. Lots of conservation about elephants, and you know, we know the struggles that they're going through at the moment. You know, an elephant is actually killed every 15 minutes in Africa, and it's an extraordinary thing to kind of fathom, I think, in this day and age, that this is still happening, and the poachers are getting a lot more you know, teched up and in this. But Amarula Trust really is around conservation. It's around protecting and really empowering the local people there in Africa, and that's what we want to get behind the brand. And I think one of the most successful stances we took from a business perspective was in 2018, and we worked with a couple of the retailers during the month of August, and we gave 50 euro cents back for every bottle of Amarula that we sold in travel retail. And both retailers that we worked with actually matched that donation as well. So you know, we end up giving back at just over 100,000 euros just during that month. And so it's something that we're continually working on. You know, we're working on some great new projects at the moment. Project Kanisha, which is a white albino elephant, which was abandoned by her mother, which we're kind of you know, looking after at the moment in one of the protection areas up in South Africa as well. So it's something quite close to my heart, you know, especially when you see these beautiful animals, mammals, just in person.
Yeah, well, it's brilliant work, and congratulations for all that you've done. And we'll certainly continue to showcase your efforts, as you know, because I think it's fundamentally important. Well, now, at this stage of the show, Luke, we're going to do something completely different, as they say. We're going to take you up to our resident duty-free island, desert island, and we're going to give you a few creature comforts there. So I'm going to pass over to Roger to take you there.
Fantastic.
So Luke, you've arrived on the island. You're allowed to bring one book. Any type of book you want. What book would you have on the island?
Look, I think the most interesting book that I've read, and it still sits in my suitcase every time I travel, is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And that book there is all about purpose. And I think it was a distinguishing time in my life where kind of I looked at more of changing what we actually do and how we actually become and who we want to become. You know, out of that book there's a line there, you know, life of the purpose of life is a life of a purpose. And that always just resonates in kind of everything that I try and do. So that would be one book that I'd actually definitely take along.
Fantastic. And along with that book, you had to bring some music. So one song, what music would it be? So
one song, Jeepers. I have a really range of music, anything from AC/DC down to Michael Bublé, down to kind of David Bowie or Queen. So I think if there's one song there, it'd be Michael Bublé, Home, because it's a song that I always play as I'm actually traveling back home from a business trip, because it's you know, it just is meaningful, you know, and you do feel like you're rewarded when you actually get back there. So it gets me in the mood.
Amazing. And on the island, you can have a dinner party. So you plus 3 guests, dead or alive, anyone you want. Who would you have at the dinner party?
So yeah, I was actually thinking of this after watching the other podcasts, and I think one of the people that I'd bring across would be Chevy Chase, because I think, you know, going back to the old Caddyshack days and going back to National Lampoon's Christmas, it's, you know, I think he'd be quite an entertaining soul to be sat there. Definitely Cameron Diaz. There's something about her. I think, you know, it's you know, that we could. It should be a lot of fun. And then Billy Connolly. I think, you know, Billy's just his book, you know, Born in Scotland, he's got a phenomenal life, that guy. So I think he'd quite a hilarious three people over there.
That's going to be some party.
We'd hope so. So
it would be indeed. Well, listen, given your career path, Luke, we've got to give you the creature comfort of a duty-free item.
Yes.
And you can be as parochial as you wish. Might come from your sector, might come from another sector. What would it be?
Look, I think I'd take a single malt, and it'd have to probably be a Macallan 18-year-old. You know, because I think it was one of the first brands that I was immersed in, and it's something that still remains, you know, I think as that benchmark for all brands to aspire to. So yeah, it'd be Macallan 18, I'd say.
All right, great choice. And just to close out, Luke, we're as your reward for coming to our desert island, we're also going to fly you anywhere in the world with your family. Place of your choice. Where would it be and why?
I think I've always wanted to go to base camp, in you know, base camp of Everest. And I'm not sure that my wife would probably enjoy that vacation, given that she doesn't really like the cold. But I think base camp would be one of those places where you could just meet some very interesting people, you know, and people with different purposes of actually being there. So yeah, it'd be base camp. We might not have to tell my wife until we actually get her on the plane, though, Martin. So
yeah, don't let her watch the program.
No.
Excellent. Luke, it's been terrific talking. What a great journey you've had geographically and career-wise, and, you know, with a bit of golf thrown in along. So I am sure you're the only travel retail executive in the history of our industry that's also been a professional golfer. So it's fascinating.
Well, that's really one, Martin. That's really one. I think there's plenty out there who pretend.
Well, I think Roger Sunil-Tully says that he's actually a professional golfer. He ran a education series, golf education, on YouTube for a while. Luke, I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I've seen it on YouTube, but I've also experienced it in real life, Martin, and the similarities are spot on.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Luke, listen, stay well, and I hope it's not too long before we can actually all meet face to face and have a glass maybe of good South African wine and enjoy face-to-face contact. But for now, it's been great to meet you virtually, and take good care and your family and your colleagues, and I hope all goes well in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Martin. Thanks, Roger. Really appreciate it.
Luke. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. So, Roger, what a nice guy and what an interesting conversation that was.
Yeah, I think Luke is one of those people in travel retail, Martin, that really understands the business. He started from the shop floor, literally selling in travel retail, right through to obviously now the managing director of Distill, who've got an unbelievable range of products, not just in a couple of categories. They've got product right across the piece, whether it's wines, whiskies, liqueurs, etc. It's really a great portfolio and a company that's really going places. You know, if you look on, if you do a couple of internet searches, the speed of growth Distill have had in the last sort of 5 years is unbelievable, and where they're going to go to is, I guess, for anyone to guess, but I think they're going to go to some pretty big places, and their growth in travel retail has been really big. Amarula is, you know, absolutely now is up there with Bailey's and the other large liqueurs in the category. Yeah,
no, and they're in good hands in travel retail with Luke, clearly. So that was great. We've got some really good additional guests coming up in future weeks, so we're going to look forward to that. But Roger, we'll close out today. I'll see you next time around, and we'll see everybody next time. See you next time.
See you next week.